Welcome back, casual gardeners. Thank you for joining me in my garden today, and Happy New Year! I'm recording this on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are traditionally a time when we're going to look back on the previous year. What did we want to do? What worked? What went horribly wrong? What are our goals for the coming year? And in the spirit of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, that's what this video is about. Last year was my first year in a new garden, and so I actually had some really big goals, and I've kind of narrowed it down into topics. My number one goal was to finally build a greenhouse, and so I did. I also needed to build some raised beds because I have clay soil here, and so I did. And then I felt it was necessary to build a fence around my vegetable garden because we get a lot of deer in my neighborhood. And so I felt like it was a really important thing for me to get a fence built so that when the deer come to visit, I can continue to enjoy their visits instead of feeling any animosity. So let's start with the fence. How did that go? I'm actually super happy with the fence. It has done a pretty good job excluding deer from my garden. Deer have been through my yard a lot since I built the fence, and I've never seen them actually in the garden portion of the fenced off area. I've always seen them outside of my deer fence. So I'm going to call that a win. I did have comments on that video about how my fence is not tall enough, and I 100% agree. My deer fence is not 6 feet tall. Deer can even jump over a 6-foot tall fence, but they usually only do that when they're being pursued. My fence is at its tallest point 5 feet tall, and that is arguably inadequate, but I don't feel like it's a big problem here because there's so much food outside the vegetable garden when the deer are coming through that all I really need to do is inconvenience them a little bit. It's not fun to jump over a 5-foot tall fence, even if you're a deer. And so since there's easier stuff to eat all the time outside my fence, it's enough. Or, since this is the year of Barbenheimer, my deer fence is knuff. Now on the downside, fence related, I am not happy with the gate I built on my birthday. I'm still happy with the design. I think the design is good, but the lumber I bought at Home Depot was so wet, so very, very wet, that it has shrunk significantly since I put the gate together. And that means that none of my joints are tight anymore, and I was relying on tight joints to hold it square, which means that as my lumber shrank, I developed a horrible case of gate sag. And now, if I don't shift it up, put my weight behind it, when I open it, it scrapes on the ground, which is not optimal. So my hope is that I'm going to be able to keep the fence and fix it using glue and shims or something. Now, I'm also very happy with my greenhouse, such as it is. I haven't been able to get the full benefit for my greenhouse because I didn't have it built in time for spring. And that's really, in most gardens, going to be when you get the most use out of your greenhouse, because you're starting plants early indoors, then you can move them out to your greenhouse when they're getting too big to grow comfortably inside and continue growing them on. I noticed that all of my pepper plants were stunted by the cold nights here in Logan, Utah, because the nights consistently drop below 50 degrees well into June. I found it strange that my tomatoes didn't care and they just rocked out regardless. But either way, I'm not going to plant out peppers or tomatoes in my climate until June this year, and I'm going to be very grateful to have a greenhouse to park them in because they're going to get too big for in my house. Another lesson that I learned in 23 is that I'm not going to be happy in the long term with an off-grid greenhouse. I don't believe it's serving me as much as it could with power. So I will be, one of my goals for 2024 is to run power from my house to my greenhouse in a safe and responsible manner, and have electric heat and electric fans, and really be able to take control of the climate in here. And related, I learned in 2023, well, the end of 2023 when things got cold, I learned that this is not an airtight structure. I need to caulk a lot, and I don't think I can caulk very well over the winter, because I think there are some caulks that, they need some curing time. I don't think I have enough curing time for caulk in the winter, so I'm going to have to wait until spring to caulk this. But then I am going to have a caulking party. You may call me Macaulay Caulking, because that's how much I'm going to be caulking this greenhouse in 2024. Another big 2024 goal for the greenhouse is I desperately need to build my permanent furniture in here. I'd like to build a potting table that sits on top of my water barrels and creates a usable surface there. I want to build some more permanent shelves, because I've got these little aluminum dinky things from Amazon set up here, and they do all right, but I'd like something a bit more substantial with more square footage on top. And I would love, I think, since I do a lot of filming in here, I'd like to build some storage cabinets in my greenhouse so that I can do my gardener hoarding thing that I think we probably all do, and still have a nice, tidy environment to work in and to make videos in. Now, for now, I might give up on winter growing because I do not have tight enough control over the temperature, because I have so many air gaps that are letting the heat out at night. During the day, I mean, right now it's 70 degrees. It's over 70 degrees in my greenhouse, depending on your height. So I think right here, it's about 70, feels about 75 here, and then I think we're up to about 80 here, because I don't have a fan. At night, I'm at best 5 degrees above ambient, and I've found that really, it's not going to let me grow the things I want to grow. So we're probably not going to see anything growing in here until February, maybe. I will probably break that promise and try something, because I'm a gardener. You can't go wrong with simple raised bed construction, and I'm pretty much 100% happy with the raised beds that I built in 2023. Now I have 8 4-foot by 8-foot beds that I can plant crops in, and that's a lot. That is a lot of space to grow in. Now, one thing in my raised beds that I'm not okay with is that I do have a substantial incursion of field bindweed that is just driving me nuts. And even though I did take advantage of the fall part of the cycle last year and hit all of those with an herbicide that they are more likely to have carried down into the roots, I am not even 50% certain that I got more than a bit of it. Field bindweed has an annoying habit of wrapping itself around the plants I want to keep. And it's going to be a slog. It's going to be a long slog working to get that out of my garden. Now, last year I also learned that I'd rather not grow potatoes in my raised beds. You can grow potatoes in your raised beds, and if you want to grow potatoes, you should grow potatoes in your raised beds. But I found that that's more digging in my beds than I want to do. And moving forward, I'm going to grow potatoes in grow bags, which is kind of why I bought those. I had some hopes that I'd get to use those here in the greenhouse over the winter, and I might still starting in February. But yeah, I think it'll be a lot easier to grow and harvest potatoes in those grow bags than it is just out in my raised beds. Now, another lesson I learned in 2023 was that fall peas and cole crops in my climate are not going to do very well without some kind of protection. Last fall, I had my peas planted, and I was optimistic. I was pretty sure I was going to get some peas off of them, and then a cold front came down from Canada and it actually hit us with some of the lowest temperatures we've had still this winter, and it killed my peas. It just knocked them all down. And now my kohlrabi are actually still kind of holding on, but they're at a point in their growing season now when the days are just too short and the temperatures are too low for them to do any significant growing. If anything, I'm not going to see anything from those kohlrabies until the spring, and I might need to remove them from that bed before they can produce for me, because I have a big plan that utilizes every square inch of those beds, and I'd like to implement it, which means I cannot deviate from it. I cannot wait for stragglers from last year to produce. On the bright side, any plant that's growing in a bed is contributing to the soil health of the bed. So in a sense, even if I don't harvest from those kohlrabies and I end up just cutting them down and throwing them in the compost, that's still a cover crop that I had in the bed. I also learned that I planted my garlic a little too early for this climate, or at least too early for this winter. And it put on some substantial top growth before the frosts came. Now, so far, even my soft net garlic is looking okay, and even though it's way early, so I think it's going to be okay. I think my big problem is actually going to be spacing, because I squeezed too much into that bed. But we will see. The winter's not over yet, and I can't know for certain that another crazy cold front isn't going to come down from Canada and knock everything down. Now, my garden resolutions for 2024 are going to be difficult to accomplish, at least difficult to accomplish them all. But let's go over them. What are my goals for 2024? I should at least get half of this done, but this really is a lot for a casual gardener to have on their to-do list. I'm really looking forward to having an established garden that I can actually show you what casual gardening actually looks like, because you haven't seen it yet. I've been crazy. Of course, I've already mentioned I'd like to run power out to my greenhouse. That's going to let me use my greenhouse more in the summer months as well as in the winter months, because I will have just that much more control over the environment in here. Now, 2024, if I had a name for it, and I kind of do, it's the year of the perennials. So I've built my annual beds, and 2024 is going to be a year when I shift my focus. I mean, I'm going to be planting those beds, but the construction is done. I'm going to shift my focus to perennials. Now, some of the perennials I want to do are going to use the infrastructure that I installed for my annuals. Like, I'd like to grow grapes and hardy kiwis up the fence I built, which means that I don't really have to do a lot of additional prep, because the fence is there and it can serve as a trellis for those perennials. I'd also really love to get a strawberry patch in the ground, and that's going to be outside my beds. My thinking on that is that strawberries grow fast enough that if they get nibbled by the deer a little bit, it's going to be fine. I don't see a lot of deer through here in the spring when, they're doing most of their thing. So it should be okay. I'd also really like to grow a raspberry patch. I did see at the Utah State University Botanical Gardens that they do have some goji berries that are doing quite well out here. So I'd like to try growing goji berries in my garden. And also some currants, either black currants or white currants. I hear white currants are sweeter. Also, they look kind of cool. Finally, there's a space along the south side of my garden that I think would be perfect for Jerusalem artichokes. Now this, calm down. It's well away from my beds. So even though Jerusalem artichokes do have a tendency to go a Viking and are really difficult to remove once they've established themselves somewhere, they should be far enough away that they'll be under control. Also, I'd like some filbert trees out that way. Filbert is another name for hazelnuts, just in case you're like, what's a filbert? Now you know. Now, another big thing that's happening in 2024 that's going to be a lot of effort is that I've enrolled in a Master Gardener course at Utah State University. So by the end of 2024, I should be a Master Gardener, which is kind of cool. I think Gardner Scott is a Master Gardener. I will be one too. Now, one of the things about the Master Gardening program is that I will be required to do 40 hours of volunteer service for the community. And there is an educational aspect to that. I need to share what I've learned. So I'm kind of hoping, fingers crossed, maybe I can use this YouTube channel as a part of that requirement. We will see. Now I have a bunch of ideas for videos for 2024, and some of them are actually already in progress. They're just really long projects. So the big one that I've been working on since the middle of 2023 is I'm doing a video that covers growing American pitcher plants, so that's Sarracenia, from seed. And I'd like to show you growing from seed all the way to adult pitchers. The problem that I'm running into for that video is that the seedlings are growing so slowly. Oh my goodness. I've actually got great germination, and I look at them every day and I think about what cute little pitcher plants they are, but we're not done yet. So stay tuned for that one. As I grow through 2024, I will also be collecting footage for seed to harvest videos for a lot of other crops that I'm growing. And my goal for that is to use the winter months after the growing season has concluded to actually edit together and polish up and offer up those seed to harvest videos. That is a goal for 2024 video-wise. Another video goal for 2024 for you to look forward to is I noticed that there is a lot of demand for drip irrigation videos. And while I've done 2 of them, looking back, I will acknowledge that neither of them are as informative as they could have been. So I'd like to do at least one more drip irrigation video for 2024 that actually has a lot more useful information to share with those who are looking for drip irrigation information for their gardens. I think drip irrigation is amazing. It will up your gardening game and make your life so much better. So do it, and hopefully later on I'll be able to help you with that. There was kind of an amazing response to the electroculture video I did. I got a lot of comments, which was strange in and of itself, but a lot of people saying, Dustin, you really should try electroculture before you judge electroculture. I'm going to do some more electroculture videos. I would like to do one where I'm testing electroculture in containers, and then I'd like to also set up an electroculture video where we look at, does electroculture do anything in my actual raised beds? That's going to be a whole thing. Some of the crops that I'm testing electroculture on are long season crops, so you'll have to wait till fall to get those. But look forward to more electroculture content in 2024. And of course, you can also count on videos dedicated to all of the perennial plants that I've talked about planting. And along with those, I'll be giving you updates about, this is what I'm doing right now in my garden. And that's just some of the subjects you can look forward to. What are your goals in your garden this year? What are some mistakes you've made that you'd like to share? Maybe somebody else could benefit and not make that same mistake. What are some triumphs you'd like to share? I know that feels a lot better. I'd like to do more of that. Put all of that down in the comments, because it's New Year's Day, and that's what today is all about. Thank you for joining me here in my garden today. I hope you have a wonderful time in your own.